Is it recording right now?
We're always recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, always recording. Yeah.
I was suddenly like, I had this awareness. Is it recording?
What I always do, and I do tend to tell people, but I'll always record because I hate the forced 3, 2, 1. Right now we're recording.
Let's go.
So yeah, I'd rather it just starts organically, and then when we go, you'll know. Jobsworth, Season 3, Episode 9, Educating Emma. Welcome to episode 9 of Jobsworth Season 3. This week I sit down with Emma Huggett, founder of Monty's Play Hub, a movement that blends Emma's love of Montessori and background in teaching to support and educate parents whilst giving children the space and freedom to grow happy. After leaving college and deciding that she wanted to go to university locally, Emma embarked upon a teaching degree at Anglia Ruskin in Chelmsford, landing a job at a primary school soon after graduating. While the first 12 months in her new role allowed her the freedom to teach in a way that she loved, it soon became apparent that a school's definition of success when it came to teaching was at odds with her own. We discuss Emma's experience of workplace bullying, what it was like experiencing severe burnout, and how she rebuilt her confidence and love for teaching after taking control of a situation and leaving one job to start another. We also learn all about Montessori, including how Emma discovered it in the first place, why she thinks it's so beneficial to children and parents, and what it was like starting up her own business during the pandemic whilst home educating her kids. Yep, we're talking about some serious plate spinning. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to a truly inspiring educator and Montessori master, Emma Huggett. So Emma, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, having listened to some of the episodes, I have actually thought about this already. Because I was like, right, what do I say to this question? So when I was really little, like when I was probably like 4 or 5, I think I definitely wanted to be an artist, but also wanted to be a teacher. And I just remember like having this kind of, I don't know, almost being like steered towards teaching, I suppose, because you didn't make any money as an artist. So I was kind of like, I remember this kind of like, oh yeah, I'll be a teacher sort of thing. And then as I got older, I really loved art. Like I really loved drawing. And when we were in senior school, I did design technology, and then I did that again in A level. And I really wanted to go into like product design or something like that. And then when it came to applying to unis and stuff, I was like too much of a wuss to move away. So I was like, what can I do where I can go to Chelmsford University? Oh, teaching. so yeah.
Okay. And was that a real determining factor for you to try and stay close to home? Or you must have, from a young age, you're already thinking teaching could be an option to pursue anyway, but it was not really ready yet to get away from that. Was it the support network you had around you, a bit of homesickness thrown into that?
I think so.
Friends, family?
Yeah, I just remember having this really overarching feeling that I just did not want to leave home. I just wanted, and all my friends were like, yeah, we're going to go to, Portsmouth and Farnham and all of these other, like Brighton and whatever. And I just was like, I just want to stay here. It was, I don't really know why. I just felt like I did.
Well, it's all worked out well in terms of you completed your studies in teaching and then started your career that way. And we're going to talk about how that evolved over time as we go through the podcast. It's interesting. I talk about career advice a lot on this podcast and my experience with it. And most guests, I think, if they can remember the advice they got at the time when they were choosing what they wanted to go into the big wide world and do, kind of share my opinion that it was pretty shit. Like it wasn't, or that it was very traditional in terms of what we were told we could potentially do. So I remember sitting in Civic with a careers advisor, whatever time we were allotted to go and sit with someone to talk about what we wanted to do. And the routes were always the same. It was get up into the city or go and find a trade. That was really what I remember.
Yeah.
Is it a similar story for you?
Yeah, I think it's just like mostly like just find a job where you can live, like you've definitely got a secure income coming in. Like don't take any risks, just get a job that even if you hate it, like I remember having that conversation. Like doesn't matter if you don't like it, just do it because you need the money.
Can you imagine us telling our children that now?
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I feel so strongly that I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I look back and I think, God, like, I never want my children to feel like they hate their job, like, you know, because you're doing that all the time. Like, you need to be in something that you feel passionate about.
You're doing it the majority of your life, aren't you?
Yeah.
And you're doing it day in, day out. And it should be, again, through this podcast, and I think it's a privileged position to be in if you can go to work every day and at least glean something that you enjoy about it. I think love's a strong word every day. Or you might turn around and say that you love what you do every day, and that's a great position to be in. But I do think it's a privilege to get to that point. Yeah. Not to say you don't go through sacrifice.
No,
you know,
there's definitely ups and downs, isn't there?
Yeah, of course there is. Yeah. The only reason I ask about that is because you say at 4 or 5 you wanted to do art. And then I think the general consensus is you won't make money doing that. So don't pursue it. Yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? Like my mum and my brother have both gone down that route and become like artists that make a living doing that.
Yeah. I think that's why I loved listening to podcasts so much, because I was like, oh, it's just brilliant how they stuck to the thing that they loved the most and just like and have forged a career out of it. It's brilliant.
It's rare.
Do you think so?
Personally, for the conversations I've had, I think it is. I think it is, yeah.
Okay.
Again, I'm a bit more cynical about it because I speak to so many people day in, day out in my normal day job in recruitment that are doing what they do to pay the bills, make the money, and have aspirations that they've never even spoken to people about half the time too. So, and also a lot of people identify what they love doing, what they're passionate about later in life. Not everyone's fortunate enough to know from a young age, I've got this innate drive or talent in me to do a certain thing. If you crack onto that and identify that young, you've got more opportunity, I think.
I definitely think because I remember talking to my husband about this and he had no idea what he wanted to do. And then listening to all the other podcasts as well, it just made me realise that how many people actually have no real like idea what they're suited to until much later in life. Yeah. And sometimes never.
Maybe we don't have enough conversations about it. Maybe the guidance we're given at a young age is poor. I think I would hope that our generation of parents are going to have very different conversations to the ones our parents are having with us. And it's not to detract from how amazing my upbringing was with my mum. My mum, I've said this before, she thinks I could be anything to this day. Like if I wanted a career change to do anything, my mum would be like, oh my God, John, that's amazing. Like, oh, how can we support you doing that? Yeah. But I think the conversations I'm going to have with my sons and likely that you're going to have with your kids are going to be very just different. And because we're all so much more aware of the opportunities that are available to us now. And again, it's a bit of privilege there, like that we've got that chance to say, yeah, do you know what? You can do something that you love. Yeah. So try and go down that route if it's possible. Yeah. Talk to me then. Chelmsford teaching. Yeah. Kind of in part that decision was made because you didn't want to move away from home at the time, but obviously there's got to be much more to it than that. So why teaching? Why did you feel like that was the route?
This is a hard question. I think I did always have this kind of like feeling in me that I wanted to do that. Like I've always liked being around kids and stuff. And I suppose I like the idea of like making a difference, and teaching just felt like a good way to do that, I suppose. Yeah. Sorry.
That's all right. Expand on it a bit more for me though, because I imagine your relationship with that has changed a lot over the years. Yeah. But take yourself back to then, when you're that age, when you're going through that, and it feels, the word I always think about when I think about teachers is vocation. Did it feel like a vocation? Did it feel like I need, this is my platform to be able to make a difference? Yeah,
it did. Yeah. It's and also I don't know, like it feels like the sort of career that feels kind of guaranteed, and like, and I feel like these are the wrong answers, but
no, I want you to be honest about it.
You know, there's always a need for teachers, and teaching like offered the degree that I did offered me a guaranteed job at the end of it, basically. Right, okay. Like it was, very high percentage. And I don't know, I suppose it was like I had a career that I could just go straight into and earn money straight away. And I do remember thinking like, I just want to earn money, like, and it's shit pay, but like really, like from its starting wage is not too bad, but it doesn't like increase very much. So really, like, it's not that great. But like I remember at the time it was kind of like this feels like a really secure career choice, and I suppose there was a little part of me that was like, I'll make a difference, but I think perhaps it was more about like the practicalities of it than actually like the passion, which oh my god, I'm like undoing my whole life here. I'm like, what? I'm like hang on a sec, like I consider myself as someone that's quite passionate about education, but now I'm starting to think, am I? And a
lot of the time these sessions, these recordings, I'm going to call them sessions, and these sessions do turn into a bit of therapy, so you end up thinking about things in a way that maybe you haven't approached it before. But from the position you're in now, and again, you're in a position where a lot of what you talk about, a lot of your subject matter expertise is hinged upon and important upon being dedicated and passionate about children's education. Just because you're taking yourself back to a time where maybe the type of learning you were doing, the initial motivation wasn't that vocation. That's not a bad thing. You've got to think about the practicalities. What are you at uni, 18, 19 years old? You're thinking about making your way. You're thinking about, okay, you didn't want to move away, but okay, how do I give myself the ability to move out? All of these things you need. And also, career advice at the time is get a wage, start making money, get out into the big wide world and make a name for yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to think about it at the start as like a passion that you're developing. So I don't think there should be any reservations around that at all. Okay, so you did your degree, you got this guaranteed job at the end of it. For anyone that doesn't know you, Emma, what age group were you teaching?
It's primary. So I was, most of my experience is in like upper key stage 2, which is like 10 and 11-year-olds, 9 and 10-year-olds.
Okay.
So I've worked as a teacher for 13 years. I started off doing like 8-year-olds, year 3, and then sort of, went up to the upper key stage 2 and just kind of hung about there for quite a few years. And then I was like, please, can I go down to the infants? Then they kept telling me no.
Why is that?
Because I was too good. So they wanted me to get them through the SATs. Like,
right, understood. Okay.
Blow my own trumpet. But like, I was like, please, can I just do some little children? They're like, no, we need the results from you. I'm like, oh, okay. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the reality of teaching like compared to this expectation that you had when you were doing your degree and getting ready to go out there?
I think that in the beginning I was like loving it because I was like, I get to be with these gorgeous little kids all day, having so much fun, like teaching all these lessons and like doing all these experiments and just having so much fun with them. I think in my first year of teaching, it was mostly that. And I remember kind of looking back and thinking like, oh, I should really be thinking about like the results and stuff like that. But I was just having too much fun with them. And I think in your first year, it is kind of like you're just, even though you've had the training leading up to it, in your first year, really that's your training year. Like you're really kind of like getting in there and you're responsible for a class, but you are still mentored and stuff. So like that was like the best year. And then I started to kind of like really have this like sudden understanding that, oh, hang on, I'm really responsible for getting the results for the school. And so before it was, for me, it was like, I'm helping these children get better at all these things, like reading and writing and stuff. But then it was like, oh, no, yes, I'm doing that, but also I have to meet these targets. Right. And then once you kind of, I don't know, once I sort of had this sort of realization that that's actually what my job was and it wasn't just having fun with the kids, then there's suddenly this pressure to like achieve. And and I feel like I struggled a lot with that, the pressure. I don't know, I'm one of these people that just kind of keeps going all the time and just like won't give up. But after a while, I could see that it was wearing me down, and I kept trying to like do more and do more. And, you know, and I'd be there like really late at night and like get there at 7 a.m. and leave till 7 at night and stuff like that. Or, you know, and I even went for a middle manager's position and stuff, just to add more pressure to my plate. And eventually I just burnt out.
Right.
And that was about 6 years in, and I just left with no job to go to.
Wow.
So I had about 18 months off where I was just doing supply teaching, and that like saved me. That was brilliant. Like that was like what it was in the beginning, where I could just go in, teach, do the bit I loved doing, the teaching, being with the kids, and not have any of the other responsibilities like the data and all of the shit that goes along with
the admin type stuff.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people think that teaching is just kind of being with kids, but that's such a tiny portion of the job, really. Like there's so much other stuff that you have to do. And there's a reel I saw the other day which was hilarious, and it said something like teaching is the only job where you set the work so that you've got more work to do, then you go home and do the work so that the work that you didn't catch up on, the work. And it was just hilarious because I was like, that is so like on it.
It's really interesting. My opinion of teaching teachers has changed, and I guess the delineation between the change of those opinions is pre-kids and post-kids. So I had a view of teachers and teaching before I had kids. I've got a very different view of teachers and teaching now. Yeah. And I think it's age as well, maturity, and you realise, but since having kids, realising A, how much goes into it, and also what a thankless, for the most part, what a thankless job that is, because you are dealing with the worlds of parents that have their own opinions, their own agendas, their own motives, their complete bias towards these little human beings. And you could be doing the best job in the world. Like you could be pushing yourself to do the best you can do. Yeah. But subjectively to those parents, you could be screwing up every day. Yeah. So it's what a thankless job, in my opinion, outside looking in. Yeah. And this is why I think of it as a vocation, because I think, could I do that job? No way could I do that job. It's crazy to me. Yeah. And that's a lot of pressure, as well as trying to hit numbers for the school, trying to hit those targets, taking the work home with you. Like, what a thing to be throwing yourself into.
Like, the targets thing was something that, like, over the years, I was like, this just doesn't sit right with me, because it's like you're treating a child like a number. I'm like, it just doesn't, like, I just don't like it. Like,
no, but that resonates with me. Can I ask, Emma? Yeah. How much of it do you think is the education system, like the I guess how schools are targeted and how they target their teachers? How much do you think is a problem with the system, and how much did you see other people reacting well to that? So how much is it a personal challenge for you to be in that pressured environment where there are targets? How much of it is a problem with the actual system? That's asking for a bit of introspection there, but I think it's worth asking.
I think it's probably like I don't know, like it's probably a mix of both, but I think the system definitely is like, there's a lot of flaws with the system, in that, you know, schools are expected to reach certain targets. And because they're expected to reach these targets, they're thinking about really is getting the children to do, you know, certain things, and they're not really looking at the child and seeing what the child needs. So it's kind of like flipped, where it's like, you know, it's not about the child, it's about the results. And so but that's not the teacher's fault, that's not the school's fault, that's the system, that's the way it's set up. And so, you know, I used to think that I could, you know, change it from the inside out. And I tried, and you just can't, like, you know, because you have to answer to Ofsted, and so it's
playing the game ultimately, isn't it? To try and get ahead and stay in your job, and then progress in your job, all of these things.
But then I do think that I suppose there are going to be people that are more, able to cope with the pressure that I was. Like there's,
It's interesting though, because I sat in a parents' evening for my eldest Finley the other day. I was looking at a teacher and she's amazing, but I expect she's probably in her late 20s, early part of her career maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at her thinking, how, like, there has to be a shelf life on this. Like, because especially with the school like the one that Finley's at, they've got very high standards.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't give a crap about that. I care about Finley. I care about, is he happy?
Yeah.
That is my biggest barometer. That kid comes back from school every day with a smile on his face.
Yeah.
Goes in through the gates with a smile on his face.
Yeah.
That's the barometer for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Like whatever else is going around it, they can do that. But I looked at this teacher and I thought, wow, I don't, like, how long do you keep this up? And I think it must drain you. It must.
And I think the other thing is to just mention is that it's the system has changed so much over the years. Like even in the first few years of my own career, where we changed government. I can't remember what year it was now, but like we went from Labour to Tories, didn't we, at one point? And it all just really changed after that. And like they brought a load of targets, that children in year 6 were expected to do. They brought it suddenly down to like year 4, and it's kind of like suddenly like, oh, hang on a sec, like if you do that, then you've got a load of kids that are not ready to meet those things because they haven't had all of the build up in the years coming up to that. And there was a lot of, like that there was a load of things like that changed, and it just became like, more, there just was like more and more expectation on the schools, and therefore the management. It just filters down, doesn't it, to like the teachers, and then
what is it? Ultimately, the people that are suffering are the children as well, aren't they? There's tiers of it, and the shit rolls down from the top, and then ends up impacting the children in the way that they have to be taught and the environment they're in. Yeah. So I get that. Yeah. Like I say, it's a thankless job in my opinion, looking at it. And don't get me wrong, I can imagine there are so many beautiful moments with children when you're teaching them something and something clicks. Or you're getting someone like beaming up at you because they've just solved something that an adult would find the most laborious, like maths. Yeah. Like getting into these kids' brains and affecting that change. Yeah. From the outside looking in, I can imagine that
there are
beautiful.
Some amazing golden moments. So like if I think back over my career, like particular children that just like stick out in my head, and I still see them as like 8-year-olds, but they're probably like 25 now.
That's the terrifying thing.
I actually saw a dad recently, and he was like doing some work a couple of doors down from my house, and I went, oh, excuse me, are you so-and-so's parent? And he went, yeah. And I was like, I used to be her teacher, in year 4. And he was like, oh, she's 24 now. I was like, oh my gosh.
God,
I was like, that makes me feel so old.
Well, it's like seeing your teachers now. Like we like, for anyone listening to this, me and Emma used to go to school together, and seeing like some secondary school teachers now. Yeah. I'm just like, and I think it would be scarier for them to see me.
Do you like think they recognise you still?
They will not recognise me, but I'm looking at.
They probably would.
I don't know. I think it'd be a struggle. Mrs. Watkins, the art teacher, the other day from Fix Y Mark. You might not like. I'm
vaguely remember her.
Mrs. Watkins, if you're listening, hi. And I saw her walking through Old Lee.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go up and say hello to her. Yeah. And I'm thinking she's just going to see this strange man approach her and have this conversation. She's probably retired God knows how many years ago as well, and done. And
but as a teacher myself, I would love that.
Would you?
Yeah, I would. Like if one of the, I actually saw a kid, they're not a kid anymore, it's an adult now. Recently, and I recognise them, but they sort of gave me this look, and I was like, I'm not sure if they remember me, so I'm not going to approach them. But like, I would love that if someone come up to me and said like, oh, you used to be Miss Hill. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, I should bear that in mind. I saw this is not like a Fitz Walmart reunion, but I saw Miss Lostria the other day.
Did you?
In Tesco's.
Ah.
And I walked past her, and I'm thinking, you have not aged. And I've got grey hair. She looked fantastic. And I'm like, I can't go up to you in Tesco's in my jogging bottoms and just be like, you're all right, Miss Lostria. First off, I don't know if I could take the rejection of her not knowing me. Yeah. And then I'm just like, well, where do I go from here? How are you? Oh, let's bridge however many years, 20 years of what's gone on. But yeah, it must be lovely to have that effect on kids. But you are ultimately, and it's also, I guess, you're protecting them from some of the pressure you're feeling too. Yeah. Because you've got this massive responsibility to shape these little minds.
Yeah.
And you don't want all of the pressure to filter down to them.
No, yeah, it's a huge responsibility, because essentially you're with these kids all day, every day, and for a lot of them, it's, especially the very young ones, like these are like really essential formative years. And so you've got such a big influence on them. And so, yeah, it's a huge job. And yeah, you need to have the right people in the job, really, for that.
Okay, so you talk about burnout and the subsequent 18 months of supply. What did burnout look like for you?
I was not eating, and sorry, this is hard for me to talk about.
That's okay.
Because I was at the same time as also being bullied by my head teacher. So it was a really hard time in my life. And I just remember being me, just being like, I'm not giving up. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna keep going and stuff. And it was just, I was being targeted and just kind of treated like I was a crap teacher, when I knew deep down that I wasn't, and I never had been. But she just had this like thing where she would pick on one person a year, and it was my turn. And so anyway, this all just kind of came to a head when one day one of the LSAs came up to me and she went, "Oh, Emma, your trousers are hanging off you." And I was like, "Oh, are they?" And then I just suddenly realised, I was just living off like 2 biscuits a day at that point, and and coffee, and like keeping me going. And then I went home and spoke to Martin, because we were not married at that point, and I was like, I just can't go back in. Like every morning every night I was going home and I just felt like crying. Every morning I had just this horrible dread about going in, and it was just a really awful, horrible time of life. And I remember I handed my notice in. It says the thing with teaching is that there are certain times of year that you can hand your notice in. So I was like literally on the I had to decide that day, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to. I'd have to wait another whole term to be able to leave. And I was like, I can't be in this job any longer. So I just I wrote this letter and I handed it in the next day, and she just said to me, "Okay." And I was like, and I think in that moment I was like, I knew I'd done the right thing, but maybe there was like a part of me that was hoping that she would see the value that I'd given the school in the time that I'd been there. Because I'd been there 6 years and I'd progressed up the ranks, and was part of the leadership team and stuff. But
you just got an okay.
Just got an okay.
Yeah, and given how you'd been treated, there was probably a level of expectation that it was going to be, it might have been some response like that, but you would like acknowledgement, you'd like some validation.
Yeah.
These are all things that I think when you know how much effort and energy you're putting into a job that we deserve and that should be given. But yeah.
And at that time, that job was my life. Like, I didn't have kids. I was me and Martin had not long been together, maybe like 2 or 3 years or something, and we were living together. But like that was such a huge part of my identity, that I'm Emma, I'm a teacher. And then suddenly it was all kind of like unraveling, and I was like, I don't even know what's happening here. And then so I remember my dad saying to me, "Are you sure you want to do this? Like, are you going to be able to get enough supply work to live and stuff?" And I was like, I don't know, but I can't be here, and I have to leave. Like, I can't do it any longer.
You hit a tipping point, didn't you? I think, But there comes a point, and I was in a different situation, but the way that it came about that I left my previous job is in a similar way. Like when you talk about that wanting to go home and cry.
Yeah.
That feeling of dread in the pit of your stomach, not just on a Sunday night, but every
day.
every night, every morning, going into an office and almost
feeling nauseous, like just on the way there.
There's a physical reaction to that. That I can empathise and sympathise with all of that, because that's exactly how I felt. And it all came to a head. Like, and similarly, I was 7 years at that organisation, and I cared, and it hurts more when you care and you're not getting that acknowledgement, because you put more in, you put energy and blood, sweat and tears, and to not have that acknowledged is, you take that personally. It's really hard not to.
Yeah.
But I left in the same way. I had to get out of there. I had Finley at the time, so there was responsibilities. We had, like as you would have had, but I had a mortgage and bills and a child. But I knew that if I was to salvage any part of my mental health moving forward, that decision had to be made.
Yeah.
And it's quite liberating in a way.
Yeah, it was liberating and scary. It was like, but I think don't you, when it feels right and stuff. And so I only had to work another 6 weeks in the school. But like after I handed my notes in, she left me alone. So I was just allowed to just teach, and I just stayed out of her way. And
when you were working your notice, did you have any regrets? Was there a time at all? No.
Not even one.
That's when you know you've done the right thing.
Yeah, not even one regret. The only thing that I was feeling sad about was that the people that I worked with were just amazing. It was like a family. And working in the school that I was in at the time was is in quite a deprived area, and so the children came in with a lot of like needs and like troubles and things like that. And so we all as staff just pulled together because these kids needed us to be a family, and so we were like and that is the only thing that I felt sad about, was that I would be leaving that, leaving those people behind. But I needed to, and actually after I left, everybody else left.
Really?
It wasn't I started a trend. I feel like someone might have left before me, but like
so maybe they started it, but I know what you mean.
Whatever. But over the next few years, each one just kind of left and stuff.
So what followed was supply teaching,
and that was brilliant, because that gave me all my confidence back. So initially it was kind of like, I just need to do this to earn money. Like I can't, I've got a mortgage to pay, so I can't not. So I went into supply agency, signed up, and then she would just literally phone me up at 7:30 in the morning and be like, can you go to this school? And I'm like, yeah, okay. Just, hop out the door, and off I went. And then after a while, I had schools calling me back regularly because they liked me, and I was like, and I just started to realize that I was like, oh yeah, I am a good teacher, because after such a long time of being told you shit, which was not true, you just kind of I don't know, you start to believe what other people tell you, don't you? So that inner
narrative, that inner voice starts to go, maybe I am,
self-doubt. Sort of thing. And so, so this supply teaching was brilliant. And then I had a couple of schools that would, book me for big blocks of time and stuff. And then I'd have a few other schools that would call me in for one-off days and stuff. And then eventually a job came up at one of the schools that I really loved working at. So I was at the time I was covering someone on their maternity, and I said, can I have a job, please? And they just said, yeah. So then I
back in.
But it was a nicer school, and the staff were much more professional. The management, were much more professional, and it was such a different school though, because this was in a much more wealthy area, and so. Yeah, different in that kind of sense, but it was really nice. And at that point, I'd got to a point in my own mindset where I realised that my job needs to work for me as much as I work for my job. I felt like in the beginning of my career, I just poured myself into it constantly, until I was like, there was nothing left of me. And then after doing supply teaching and getting my confidence back up and realising actually I wasn't crap, like this job it is just a job, and if I leave, they'll find someone else. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, and I think I suppose that's one of the good things in teaching is that there's always a need for teachers. Like, so I didn't necessarily feel like if I left, there would be nothing more for me, if you see what I mean.
How old were you then?
Well, when I left.
So when you got the new went and got the new full-time job.
I was 26. I think 27. I just found out I was pregnant with my first child. So trying to think. That time. 27. I think. So.
Okay, it's a good time to have that realization about work.
Yeah.
And making it work for you, because so many of us go through life pouring that energy into something that isn't working for us. So to realise that you needed to get that balance and have that focus at 27, I think is a healthy thing to have happened.
Yeah.
But you had to have gone through the experience that you had to
times.
go through. Exactly, yeah. To wade through that to come out the other side.
Yeah.
Talk to me then, because we're still talking about like the kind of traditional education setup, aren't we?
Yeah.
A big part of the conversation at this stage, I think, is like it's a chicken and egg thing for me when I think about when were you introduced to Montessori? Did that happen while you were working in a traditional education setup? That's what happened.
Yes.
So talk to me then about how you were introduced to it and how that had an impact on what you were doing.
So it always makes me laugh this because my degree was primary education.
Yep.
So part of that degree was learning about Montessori.
Okay.
I don't remember. Like, I don't remember that bit.
Do you remember what your view of it would have been at that time? I mean, if you can't remember it, I would imagine you're not putting too much stock in it.
I had no opinions, but I just remember, so I discovered Montessori when my son was about 1, I think. And then I remember thinking, how did I never know about this? Like, this makes so much sense to me. I feel like I've missed a trick here, in my career, like, sort of thing. And then I was talking to a friend of mine who I trained with, and she was like, we did learn about that. And I was like, did we?
That's how much it stuck with me at the time.
It's like, clearly it wasn't important to me at the time. Like,
can I jump in and ask, for anyone listening to this now that doesn't know what Montessori is, can you give me a really snapshot of what it is, just so people understand? We're going to talk about it more, but just at this point. So
Montessori is a method of education. It's very hands-on. The child is encouraged to kind of like have as much freedom and independence as possible. So they basically we encourage them to kind of like learn things through playing with objects and stuff, rather than just kind of sitting down and writing all of the time and things like that. So all of the skills that they learn are all through like hands-on learning and stuff. I feel like I've really not explained it very well.
I think it was a brilliant explanation. And the thing is, it can be this, it's hard to disseminate in something so simplistic, isn't it? Because whilst it is, again, I'm coming at this from a position of ignorance, which I think is actually quite a good position to come from, because a lot of people listening to this either haven't heard of Montessori or have not considered a world where they are, their kids are being educated in that way. So to put you on the spot and ask, can you give me a definition of what Montessori is slightly unfair, but I think it's important to fill the gaps for anyone that hasn't ever heard of it before. But you were introduced to it when your son was 1.
Yes.
Do you remember how you were introduced to it?
I do.
Reintroduced to it.
I was introduced. Basically, what started it, the whole thing off, was there was so much clutter and crap in my house. I was like, I need to sort this house out. So then I came across this decluttering method called the KonMari method. Have you heard of it?
I feel like I have. I've definitely never implemented it, but I feel like I've heard it.
That changed my life a bit. Right. And then, so I got rid of all the crap out of the house, got to the toys section, and then I decluttered them all. And then I put on the Facebook group that I had done, you know, the toys, and someone said to me, oh, look up the Montessori method. And I was like, okay, so looking it up, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. Why have I not heard of this before? So that was kind of like the point where I'd heard about it. And then I just became completely obsessed with it, and was like researching all of the time, following people on Instagram. I did courses. I just read books, just wanted to learn every single little thing about it.
What was it that resonated with you about it?
Just the whole kind of like, well, so he was a toddler at the time, so for me it was like, oh, like involving him in like everyday tasks, like the cooking, or like making his sort of play area like actually functional. So rather than it being a play kitchen, make it into an actual kitchen that he can actually use and stuff like that. And the fact that having the toys on the shelf visible rather than in these big toy bins, which I previously had, or like toy boxes, made it more accessible for him. So he's more likely to go and play with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, these are all these little things kind of like made a lot of sense to me. And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to learn more about the method and stuff. So
how did that start to have an impact on the environment you were teaching in too? Did it start to spill over, and did that start to change your mindset?
Yeah, because it was kind of like it was more about like the communication side of it, to be honest, like the way that I was communicating with the kids and stuff. Like a lot of my teaching degree was about how to handle a group of 30 kids and how to get them to do the things that you want them to do and behave in a certain way. So there's a lot of like, you know, using sticker charts and stuff like that. But then learning about Montessori made me realise that actually none of that is necessary if you provide the right environment for the child and the right activities and the right interests and things. They don't need to be persuaded to take part in. They don't need those stickers to be like, oh yeah, if you do this then you get a sticker. So it kind of like, yeah, it did overspill into my teaching, because I remember like at the school that I was at, they had a big behaviour policy about, you know, like you have to give this amount of stickers for this or whatever. And I just did none of it. I just like was like, oh yeah, forgot to do that again. I just, ignored the behaviour policy. But my class they were not badly behaved. They were probably the best behaved class. And I feel like we had like, because I was not controlling them in the way, like they had a lot of autonomy, a lot of choice and stuff. You know, I was not giving them stickers to behave a certain way and stuff. So I was not in control of them, if you see what I mean. Yeah. We had this kind of like really mutual respect and stuff. So even the naughty, inverted commas, kids, like the children that other teachers were finding difficult, I just had no problem with, because they knew that they were being treated fairly and listened to and stuff. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And how was that viewed by your peers, like your colleagues?
I don't really know, to be honest. No one really mentioned anything to me. Like no one said anything like why are you not using the behaviour policy? Yeah, what are you doing? I don't really remember. No,
that's fine. Yeah, I just didn't know, because if the way you're doing things, I guess it's not so radically different that it would sort of stick out like a sore thumb at that stage. But at the same time, it is different. Like you're going sort of circling around the behaviour policy, which sounds like it was the right thing to do. And I guess they'd be more bothered about the results. If you were missing the behaviour policy and all your kids were becoming feral, all of a sudden, Emma, can you please start introducing the stickers again? But if that's not happening,
no, that's the thing. And I just knew that it was not necessary, so I just did what I wanted.
I listened to a couple of podcast episodes in preparation for this conversation. Not enough, but some. And someone defined at a high level Montessori as or part of it as being able to translate for kids too, in terms of when it comes to communication, or in that Montessori type environment, that Montessori learning environment is almost looking at what children are doing and some of their behaviors, and then helping them translate what that behavior actually means. Is that any link, or is that just more, that's not necessarily a Montessori thing, but maybe it's something that's more prevalent in that environment?
It is more kind of prevalent in that environment, in that you're helping the child to understand themselves and other children.
Rather than labelling a child as naughty or that behaviour is not, quote, normal or helpful, it's actually helping them translate how they're feeling, that emotion at the time.
So you kind of work backwards in a way, and like so the behaviour is like the end result, and then you're working backwards to figure out why they're behaving in that sort of way. So, you know, if you look at, I don't know, a child that's kind of, I don't know, maybe they've come into school and they just throw their bag on the floor or what have you, you know, some people might think, oh, well, that's not acceptable. But actually, if you work back through their morning, perhaps they haven't had their breakfast, or perhaps they have had an argument with their parent on the way here and stuff, and then suddenly they're just shoved through the door. And so you just kind of have to like work your way back and work out, you know, what the cause of the problem is, and almost like ignore the behaviour, because that is just like, that's almost like the last resort.
It's the byproduct, isn't it?
Of like the something that's happened, and then you work on the thing that is the issue.
The reason I asked that is that class sizes in traditional education system, am I right calling it that?
Yeah.
Traditional education, yeah. So if in a traditional education, traditional classroom with the class sizes we're seeing now, like in my son's primary school, there are 30 kids in that class.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that teachers are always going to have the bandwidth to give that individual focus that you might need to have more of that approach that we just discussed.
And there are so many teachers that will try their damned hardest to do that, but you're just under time pressures.
How realistic is it?
Yeah, like exactly. Like you've got, you know, once they get I remember like they get in at 9:45. By 9 o'clock we had to be in assembly. So if you've got like 3 kids that need your attention in that time, you've also got to do the register, and you've got to get everyone lined up ready for an assembly and to be quiet and stuff. Like you're so time pressured, and you know, there are so many funding cuts as well in schools and stuff. Like I remember at the beginning of my career, everybody had an LSA, but you were lucky. By the time I ended up leaving teaching, you were lucky if you had one, really. And if you did, it was probably only because they were with a one-to-one child. So it's just the funding cuts were insane. But
So you start this journey of discovery of Montessori, like you get the bug, you start doing courses, you're reading. I think you describe yourself on your form as someone that loves to do research as well.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a geek for research. I just love it. Just love I just love learning new stuff, like, and just learning about like why kids do certain things, or like, you know, I don't know, just love it.
That's brilliant. What a quality to have in the profession that you've chosen for yourself, the world that you're operating in too. So it's definitely not a bad thing. It works really nicely. When then do you start to get this feeling in your head that Monty's is going to be a thing? So you're still in traditional education, you're still teaching, you've got a toddler.
Yeah. So this didn't come for another few years, actually, where I was just sort of finding out about Montessori and just kind of like weaving it into my life and stuff. And then it wasn't until my second child came along, my daughter, and I was on maternity leave. And I think this happens for a lot of women on maternity leave, where they just start like questioning their life choices. Their careers and stuff. It's like, I just need to change. But no, I think for a lot of women on maternity leave, like you just get inspired by new things and like want to try something different and stuff. And there was a friend of mine who said to me, like, she just wanted to get out of teaching, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I'd like to as well, really. Like, it's such a funny one, because I kind of knew, like, my whole career, I knew that I wouldn't be in teaching forever. Like, it was never a forever job. Like,
that's interesting.
Yeah, even right at the beginning, I just knew for myself that it would be 10 years max. And I was actually there for 13, but like, so it's close enough. But without maternity leaves, maybe it was closer to 10. But it's just funny, like how you just kind of know these things. Anyway, so she said to me, like, she wanted to get out of teaching, and, you know, did I fancy setting up this kind of like holistic tutoring kind of business sort of thing? And I was like, yeah, that sounds really interesting. And we had a lot of meetings and stuff. And my daughter was probably only a few months old at this point, but sort of, it was like talking about it a lot, and then set up these kind of like activity groups, I suppose. And they were initially for older children, and she was secondary trained and I was primary trained. So she decided she was going to do like some older kind of groups, like trying to think what she did now. Like she did like a crime scene investigation type thing and some other bits. And then I was like, well, I quite fancy doing a Montessori style group for like little ones. About 6 months after we just kind of like started all of this, she decided she actually wanted to go back into teaching. So she got a job, and I said, well, I actually really want to carry it on. Yeah. So
she'd lit a spark that is now like...
I was like, I'm just going to keep going. So we agreed that, that I would take over everything. I rebranded as Monty's, and that's just kind of how it started, really. And I was running it alongside actually teaching for about 6 months, and then I was in a coaching session with someone, and she went to me, so when are you going to leave teaching then? I was like, oh, I just don't know, like I just feel a bit scared. And she's like, well, what about your like job share? What if she leaves before you do? And I was like, she can't do that. and she's like, well, don't you think you need to hand your notice in? And I was like, yeah, I think I do. Because I was going to do it anyway. She was just a bit like, why are you dragging your heels? Like, why are you taking so long? So then I just handed my notice in, and I left COVID. I left. Right. Yeah. So then that worked really well for the classes.
I remember at a time, because I think I'd started following your page, or definitely started seeing more of what you were putting up on Instagram, and probably retrospectively, because my partner Sophie worked with you for a spell too, and I was looking at some of the classes you were like trying to get that working during that time.
Yeah.
I promised in season 3 I wouldn't talk about the pandemic too much, but it played don't be silly, but it's played such a pivotal point in the last 4 years. You can't get away from it.
Yeah.
4.5 years now. It's crazy to think how much time has gone. Where in the chronology of you kind of stepping off and going, right, I'm going for it. So leaving your full time. Yeah. I know your job sharing at the time, but leaving that job.
Yeah.
When did the pandemic start? You were through that.
I handed my notice in. I handed my notice in November 2019, and then, I could have left at Christmas, I think, or maybe it was October. I don't know. So I could have technically left at Christmas, but I said to them, no, I'd leave at Easter. But then obviously by March we were in pandemic, so it was like bye over Zoom. It's so weird.
And what feelings are going through your head at that time? Like, you've pulled the trigger, you're committed to this now, and there's financial implications to that. There are, I mean, a lot of self-doubt can kick in. I was a similar sort of time. I started the business in September 2019, and then 6 months later I'm being told that like recruitment is not the number one priority for a lot of people. So and I remember how I feel, but how did that feel at the time?
I actually remember it just being like almost like a challenge that I could rise to, like in a way, like I'm good outlet. But it was though, because I suddenly could see that all of these parents were suddenly like, fuck, I'm at home with my toddler all day. What the hell am I going to do with them? And I was like, I've got loads of ideas. I know exactly what you can do with them. So I started a WhatsApp group, and it had hundreds of people in it, and I would send an activity every day. And so that, not everyone did it, it's fine, but like they, could pick and choose and stuff. So then they were all there for them to go back to if they wanted.
Yeah, it was inspiration.
Yeah. And then I also did it was called 5 days of sensory play or something like that. And it was like a 5-day kind of like challenge, or I suppose, like where everyone got an email every day. And they were so simple, like these activities. It was literally like, go for a walk with your toddler, but go at their pace rather than your pace. And every time they pick something up, you're going to really marvel at that object with them, even though it's a rock and it's really boring. Like, to them, it's the most fascinating thing they've ever seen.
I got to interject with I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it made me laugh so much because it really reminded me of both my boys. But they said, if I had kept every rock that my kids pick up, I'd have a quarry in the back garden, because it's so true. I love that. I love that. It's much more like this mindful approach.
Yeah. And I was very much of the, like, so what I want to teach people is that you don't actually need toys for your child. And so that's a big part of like what we offer, you know, the kind of advice and stuff that we sort of offer at Monty's and stuff. But yeah, like, so at that time I was kind of like, look, I know you know you're all at home, you're not spending money on going your train fares and stuff, and you've got extra cash, but like, don't spend it all on toys. You don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to go out and buy loads of new stuff to entertain your kids at home, because there is so much stuff already available that they will find so fascinating. And so I was really trying to encourage people to get outside, and especially in the pandemic where everyone was just like doom and gloom and stuck indoors, and it was awful time. Like, so I did this like 5-day challenge thing, and then I remember thinking, like, I think it's about 3 days in, and I remember saying to my husband, like, I need to have something to offer these parents at the end. Like, by the end of it, they're going to want to carry on. So that's where my toddler course came. It was like a moment of like, I need to do this kind of thing. So so then I offered, it was called Your Independent Toddler. And it was, the whole ethos behind it was to teach parents like how to allow their children a bit more independence, like know how to play with them with simple stuff and that. And also a little bit of like behavioural stuff. So trying to help parents understand what is going on in their child's brain at that time of life. These were all toddlers as well. So and because, you know, because when you understand actually what is happening to your child and, you know, why are they behaving in that certain way, then suddenly you kind of like, you change your own behaviour and you're expecting less, and then you're able to respond in a much more like holistic kind of way. You see what I mean? So yeah, so that was great. Like this toddler course it just flew. Like I almost couldn't believe it actually at the time, because like I'd started the classes, they were going nicely, and I was building up a bit of a community. Then COVID hit and everything stopped. And I was like, but I've got all this community of people who need help with their toddlers. So I need to like offer them some help. So I was just, it just started off as fun. And I was like, no, I need to offer them more. Like they want more. And so it just kind of turned into this toddler course. And and then I remember like, I think I ran it twice, and the second time I had like 26 people join, and I was like, what? Like, and it was, for me, it's like mind blowing. I was like, I don't know. And then I still get people now, like so that was 4.5 years ago. Like, say, I still get people now come to me and say, Emma, that course changed my life. Like, and that's like, that is so like,
what a lovely thing.
Like, yeah, what a legacy. Like this lady I saw the other weekend, I haven't seen her for a good couple of years, and she said, you do not know how much of an impact you had on me and therefore my child. Like, she is so happy. And, you know, she ended up actually delaying her school start and stuff. And she said, if it wasn't for you, she wouldn't be as happy as she is now. And I sort of think, oh, that's so lovely of you to say, but actually it wasn't me. Like, you know, maybe I gave you the confidence, but
well, then it was you, wasn't it?
No, but like I don't want to take away from that. Like, it's her, you know, she took the leap with her, you know, the leap of faith for her child. Like, that's not for me to take away.
It's very difficult, and I think it's a typically British thing to be humble and have that humility. But yeah, look, you were the catalyst for her exploring that. So it's a shared. It's almost like, all right,
I'll share it with her.
You share it. You share it and feel comfortable doing it. I'm exactly the same. Yeah. When I get, you know, I have people where I place them in jobs and they say like, I wouldn't be in this position without you. And you're like, all you're doing is you're a facilitator, really, aren't you, into taking someone down that path.
Yeah.
And that you should take that.
Yeah.
Although I will never do it. but you should. Okay. So 4.5 years ago this was. I want to talk about a couple of things when it comes to running a business and being a mum.
Yeah.
So obviously, you've got 2 kids.
Yeah.
You're running a business.
Yeah.
When does homeschooling come into the picture?
So, firstly, It's actually home educating. It's okay.
But this is good. I'm here to learn, and I think a lot of people will be interested in that as well. So home educating.
So it's not just me being pedantic either. Is that there's actually the two terms are legally different. So homeschooling is actually where the child is still registered with school, but for whatever reason they do their work at home, and that's agreed with the school. So that was basically what everyone was doing in COVID was homeschooling.
Right. Okay.
Whereas home educating, the child is not registered with the school, and all of their education happens at home.
Okay.
So
that's interesting. Thank you for defining that, because I would have carried on calling it homeschooling without changing that interpretation. So thank you.
It's all over social media though, like homeschooling. And the thing is, in the UK, the terms are legally different, but in the US,
they're interchangeable.
They're interchangeables. Yes, I think a lot of people think that you can just interchange the terms, but actually you can't really, and it can become a bit of a problem for home educators when the word homeschooling is used for.
Well, it's very different, isn't it? So, it is very different. Yeah. So I understand it. Thank you for calling me out on that, because
no, it's fine.
It's a learning moment.
So I'll have to rewind a little bit, because
please do, yeah.
So I remember when my son was 3, he's my eldest, when he was 3, and I was, at the time, I was fully immersed in Montessori, learning about Montessori and stuff. And a friend of mine who I'd not long met, actually, Steph. Oh, you know Steph, don't you? Supernova Birth Services. Yes, you do. Hypnobirthing. Yeah. I'd not known her long at the time, but she was also really into Montessori. And I remember talking to her about schools and stuff, because our 2 eldest children were getting to the age where we would be applying. And she said to me, I think we're just going to home educate her. And I was like, really? I honestly was like, why would you do that? That's, almost I think that's mad. Why would you do that sort of thing? And I sort of look back and think, gosh, I suppose at the time, I had no idea really what it entailed or any experience of it at all. My only experience of education was my own education and then my whole teaching career. So it was very one-sided. So I remember sort of this really sort of reaction.
How did she react to that? Did you voice it at the time, or were you?
Yeah, no, I did. Yeah, we were quite we were always very open with each other. So so I was just really what, why sort of thing, and then she was kind of going into a few reasons and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, okay, this actually sounds quite interesting, and so then I kind of it just kind of threw a bit of a curveball in, because I was like, hang on a sec. We are just at the point where we need to start looking at schools, and I feel unprepared because suddenly there's this other option that we haven't even explored, we had no idea about. So I was then frantically kind of researching and stuff, how it all works, adding myself to Facebook groups and listening to blogs and podcasts and reading blogs and blah, blah, blah. And so I got myself to a point where I was I actually, I'm not just following my friend's lead because I like her. I actually do genuinely think that
you're judging it on its own merit.
Yeah, this is something that sounds really, really amazing, and I feel like it would be really enriching to our lives and stuff. So then I was talking to Martin about it, and initially he was a bit skeptical. I was I just don't know about this kind of thing. And so, because the date for the school applications was looming, we were feeling under pressure to make a decision right there. So then what we said was, we were right, okay, we will just apply to the local school, because that's only 2-minute walk. And then if, we decide later down the line that we do want to educate, if we decide later down the line that we do want to home educate him, then we can just change our mind. There's no, you can do that at any point. So, so we applied, and then I don't know, just things just kind of, we had a few conversations with some friends and family and stuff, and we got a lot of oh, you can't do that, kind of reactions. And then I think that gave us the wobbles a little bit. And then we just kind of, like, I don't know, just kind of got swept up with school stuff. And then suddenly we bought the uniform and he was, and then you're taking this photo of him by the front door and like my eyes are welling up sort of thing. And then he'd gone. And so that was September 2019 when he started. And yeah, so that was all kind of happening at the same time, where I was like starting my own business. He was going to school. I wasn't necessarily 100% on board with it. And I really felt like we just were giving it a go, I suppose. And then when COVID happened, I just took that opportunity and was like, I'm just going to go for it. Like, we're going to ignore all of the emails the school's sending and with all this, like these worksheets and stuff. And we're just going to do whatever he wants to do. And I remember that whole summer, he was just obsessed with sharks. And we were just constantly reading about sharks and doing projects about sharks. And, you know, it's like putting words all around the garden for him to like to go on a treasure hunt with and stuff. And my daughter was like 1.5 at the time as well, so she was kind of half joining in, and like it was all like messy and weird, and this, you know, because COVID was weird, wasn't it? Like, but it was like just what we needed at that time. It's like a weird kind of feeling, because like I remember feeling like we were so lonely. Like I have got a close relationship with my mum and dad, and so not seeing them every day was really hard, or like, you know, most days. But I was also like felt, I don't know, like quite sort of excited about the opportunity of like, you know, all of the things we could do, just us at home. That unit. So yeah. So that's where kind of like home educating kind of started, really.
Like in a way, what a great time to have that kind of proving ground to try it out and see if practically it works. Because the biggest barrier when I hear about home educating is the practicalities of it. I can see the benefits. I can really see the benefits of it. And your approach and that kind of child-led learning. And I see when I'm talking about Finley just because he's a little bit older and he's gone through the school system. But I see what happens when I allow him and I follow his lead. Yeah. And I see what that brings out in him. Yeah. The biggest barrier is the practicalities of running a business myself, my partner wanting to work. Yeah. How the hell do you make that work? Yeah. But what a good testing ground for that to happen. Yeah.
I don't even know at the time like how I managed it all, to be honest, because Martin was working full time, working from home. So he was around, but he wasn't really around to help. Yeah. You know, and I had 2 young kids, and I was also trying to like run all these WhatsApp groups and this course and stuff like that. And so a lot of Saturdays I just devoted to work, evenings, and then like home ed stuff was just naturally occurring, really, because he was so young anyway. It was just all play. And
so when did you pull the trigger to actually make it home educating then?
That happened in the June 2020. So so all the schools closed in the March, and then they started to reopen, but there was a choice. You didn't have to send them, and I said no. And then it was the June, I think, I'm trying to remember now exactly how it went, but at some point that summer, I think they were reopening. And then I just handed in the deregistration letter. So
what did that feel like at the time?
Oh, I felt sick. Like I actually emailed them to start off with, and it got ignored. And then I sent a letter. That was so funny because I sent a letter, but I sent it special delivery to the schools, but I was sending it from the post office. It was literally like 2-minute walk from the school. And the lady behind the counter was like, "Are you sure you're paying £6 here?" And I was like, "Yeah, I definitely want to send this special delivery," because then I had proof that it had been delivered. But like, so that was so weird. I remember like hovering, like when I was going to send the emails, like I was like, Martin, I can't press send. I was like, I can't do it. Like, and he just took the phone from me and went send, and he was like, see, I've done it. I'm like, oh. I was like having palpitations.
Looking back on that moment, because you said when you first addressed it with Martin, there was some questions or reservations.
Yeah.
Were you both completely on the same page when you got to that point?
Yeah, 100%.
Was Martin a little more behind the curve than you in getting there, though? Did you have any convincing to do?
No, because and I always think that if you've got convincing to do, then perhaps there's a little bit of a problem and you need to kind of like work through that first. But like, so
you both need to be fully on board.
Yeah, definitely. Like, but also you both need to be willing to hear the other person as well. And I think that it's not really fair to kind of like just shut the other person off.
That's just good relationship advice, isn't it?
Try my best.
Yes, yeah.
Been a wife now for nearly 11 years.
and again, is the responsibility shared or in part shared with home educating, or did you take the role to say this is because of obviously what you've done for a living for 13 years? Did you take that role and say, this is going to be my job?
Well, we never really had a like sit down discussion about it. I just naturally took the majority of it on, I think, based on like my career and my passion for Montessori and blah, blah, blah. But over time, he's so good with the children. Like, he's very responsive to them and like does, like he naturally just kind of like, adds in learning opportunities, like without even realizing it. And that's the kind of thing that, I was trained to do years and years ago, but he just is like, and I'm like, hang on a sec.
The natural ability for
Wait a sec, I did a degree. Anyway, so I don't know whether he's just kind of picked that up through watching me or what have you, but he just seems to be really good at just naturally kind of taking these opportunities. But, practically time-wise, he's around less because he works full-time. But when he is around, he's taking opportunities to do stuff with them and stuff, and sometimes he'll have like days off work and he'll take them to their groups and whatever, or he'll join us on our nature walk and stuff like that. So it's just nice. It's just even though like I suppose I'm taking the lead, but it is still our shared responsibility, because it's not like it is in parenting generally anyway. Like you're not, just because someone works more hours than the other, it doesn't mean that the other person,
it's a joint venture, isn't it?
Yeah. So how
do you set boundaries when you're doing home education? Because for me, I drop Finney off at school, I pick him up from school, and that's school done. And there's learning moments, but not in, I would imagine, the same kind of way in which you're doing them. But do you focus on boundary setting? Is there something like the start of the day?
Do you mean with the children, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, I do mean with the children. Yeah, we'll talk about how you set boundaries between work and life in a second. But with the kids or with your approach to learning at home, is there something like a start time and a finish time?
No, it's all very, that's one of the lovely things about it, is it's all completely your choice. And some people, so for some home educating families, that does work, like having a set structure of like, we do this at this time and this at this time or what have you. But for us, the term is unschooling. Okay. So it's basically, it sounds like you're basically doing nothing all day, but it's not that at all. Like it's actually a real thing. If you Google it. So unschooling is essentially, it's like child-led learning. And so what it tends to look like from an outsider looking in is a child that's just playing all day, but actually there's loads going on behind the scenes. So as a parent, what I will be doing is something called strewing, which is like setting up kind of like interesting kind of activities and stuff, just to kind of like leave them around. So for instance, last week or the week before, I set up in our conservatory an art sort of activity, like an invitation to kind of explore basically. So it's kind of a tray that had like loads of interesting kind of artifacts on it, like fossils and pine cones and flowers and a melon that I'd grown in the garden and like some bits and pieces. And then I put some paper and some some paints out. But at no point did I say, come on, we're all doing art. That's just that, because that's not in line with unschooling philosophy. It's the whole thing is that you provide the opportunities and then the child chooses. And my daughter, she, after I'd set it up, I set it up the night before and she saw me setting it up. And then the next morning she knew that we were having friends round. And I said, oh, you know, I thought that some of our friends might like to, you know, do some art and stuff. And she's sort of standing there. She's like, Mummy, I really want to do it now. I'm like, you can do it now. Like, you don't have to wait. Like, it's fine. But like, that's like 7 a.m, you know? So like, it's kind of, it's like, it just, I suppose if you think of like school starts at 9, it finishes at 3, but with home educating, it's all the time. It's any time. So really, you don't have to be constrained by time frames or a timetable or anything like that, unless you've got like specific places you need to be, like groups and trips and stuff. But like, you can just do it however you want to do it and whatever works best for your child. And I think that's the key, is that it needs to work for your child and for you as a family. So, and it does take a while to get into a rhythm of like what actually works and stuff. And also as they grow and they change and their needs change, your rhythm changes as well. So you need to be able to adapt as well.
That's an interesting point. Also, the whole 9 till 3 thing was introduced at some stage, wasn't it? It doesn't necessarily, in the same way, in your working day, there are peaks and troughs throughout the day, where your energy levels, your cognitive ability to deal with certain tasks changes and fluctuates. So why shouldn't we be working? I find I'm much more creative in the morning. I struggle at night. So forcing me to be creative in the evening is not the best way to do it. That's when my brain starts to shut down and go into different tasks. So why wouldn't it be any different for our children?
Exactly.
So I look at what you've done with a lot of inspiration. Like I said, my biggest questions around the practicalities, and almost like, God, I'd love to be able to do that. But how the hell do you make that work? And the insight you're giving us is that, it is work. It does evolve. You have to find a way that it works for you. I just think it's really inspiring what you've done.
Thank you.
I also, I'm also like, how you're making that work is always a big question for me, which is great. It's amazing to see it, but I maybe there's a bit of envy there. Like, I want to be able to do it, and maybe just pulling the trigger and doing it is the thing.
Yeah, like I think you just kind of have to go for it. Like, there's always going to be like a transition period where you're just kind of like, oh crap, like what is happening here? And I think it does take a little while to settle down and stuff, and you find your feet and that. And I think a lot of people, when they first deregister, they're suddenly like, right, let's do this club and we're doing this today, and you know, like, and it becomes way too full on, and then they get overwhelmed. And I definitely did that, like at one point. And, you know, when we came out of COVID and suddenly everything was opening up again, I was like, oh, we've got all of these opportunities that we can take advantage of and stuff. And it got a bit much. And then in the end, I cancelled everything. And then we had nothing going on like no clubs or anything. And I was like, right, we need something. So it just, like I say, like, it just takes a little while to find your balance. But I always think there's like, you know, if you want to do something, you just have to think creatively, and there will be a solution, you know, and there will be a way. Like I, you know, you're saying that you admire what I do, but like, I admire, like, you know, the people that are traveling the world with their kids. And I just think, I would love to do, like, even just get a camper van and like travel around the UK. Like, I would love to do that. But for me, I'm just like you're saying, like, it's the practicalities. Like, I need to get my head around how that would work and stuff. Like, I'm not leaving Monty's, everyone, by the way.
But I guess the way you've chosen to educate your kids allows that flexibility and freedom. The business binds you a little more, doesn't it, to a physical location, in that you have responsibilities outside of that too. So how do you balance that? What is your approach to work-life balance? Because Monty's is something you're so clearly passionate about, and so clearly you've got so much love and energy, enthusiasm you want to pour into it. When you've also got this big responsibility at home too, how do you how do you put the boundaries between the two?
You know, that is something that I've really struggled with for such a long time, because like, and I feel like I've only just got to the point, and like Monty's is 5.5 now.
Wow.
And I've only just really got to a point where I feel like the balance is right. And so, and I think that it's just taken a long time to kind of really kind of find a way of it, sort of me feeling like I'm offering enough time to the business, and also giving enough time to my children to home educate them, but also having enough time to be a wife and for myself, because you know, otherwise I go crazy, like, and be in the garden, like do all the things that I like to do. So it's been a process to get to this point, but I've definitely gone through phases of like doing way too much in the business, and it just basically taken over my life to the point where I was like, I just want to sell it. Like, like I literally have like even somewhere I've got a note piece of paper where I was like writing out a plan of what I was going to do to sell the business, because I just felt so overwhelmed at that point. So yeah, but it's I feel like I've got quite a nice balance. So at the moment I only work on Tuesdays physically doing classes, and then on a Sunday night, I spend time sort of like prepping and stuff. So then that leaves me Monday nights where if I need extra prep time, I've still got some time. And then Thursday, Friday, I make sure I do. Oh, sorry, Wednesday the kids are at their forest school. So then that's my day to myself. And I did at one point, I was working on that day, and then I realised I was like, no, this is like too much. So then I stopped working on a Wednesday. And then Thursday, Friday, I just switch off from work completely, and that is me with the kids, like fully, like with them. So yeah, so I've got like a nice mix of where I've got Monday with the kids, Tuesday with their nan and granddad, Wednesday they're at their forest school, and then Thursday, Friday I'm with the kids, and then also just a nice balance of work as well. So
it is a process though, isn't it? And especially when you start your own business. Again, I've said this on a lot of episodes, but I started it so I could have a better work-life balance. And then it was worse than it's ever been. But I think there's a big difference when you've got autonomy, and the stress you're putting on yourself is your own stuff for you. And you can see the benefit of, you know, sacrificing time with loved ones at certain times if you've got something to show for it at the end, and that acknowledgement that comes from knowing you put that effort in. For yourself, that's a big thing. I think work-life balance is tough, especially when you've got school-age children. But I can imagine work-life balance when you're home educating is even harder, because I think you've got your 9 to 3. You can kind of when I drop the kids off at school, I'm like, take a breath. I can go and now do my stuff. So I
don't know. Sometimes I think about this and I think maybe it looks like it's harder, but maybe it's just different. Like,
I think it's easy to use the word harder, isn't it? But maybe different is the word. Do you see a time as they start to get older where this becomes more challenging or challenging in a different way? Or is this what you were alluded to earlier, that it just evolves? Like as they get older, it just what you do with them evolves?
I mean, when we first started, I definitely was kind of like, you know, we'd sort of said like at least till, you know, age 7, 8, we'll definitely home educate. And then, you know, but we've always kind of sort of said like, as long as it's working, we'll just carry on sort of thing. And but the more we do it, the more I think we need school less, if you see what I mean. So we just kind of, and I do think that, you know, there are going to be challenges coming up, and I suppose I'm thinking about, you know, in sort of 4 or 5 years' time, we'll be thinking about things like GCSEs and stuff like that. But, you know, all of that's still available to home educated children. It's just that you have to, it's different. It's like, again, it's that word different. It's just done differently. So like some kids will go to the 14 to 16 college in Southend and do like a level 1 course to sort of get them in and stuff, do it that way. Some kids will do a GCSE early, or they'll like spread them out over a couple of years or whatever. But then also, you know, like when we went to school, we ended up with like 10, 11 GCSEs, which is madness, isn't it? Really, like you don't need that. Yeah, exactly. Mrs. Bushell and her geography GCSE, she told me I was going to get a D.
Really? What did you get?
I got an A. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong, bitch.
In your face, Miss Bushell.
Yeah.
Again, if you're listening to this, it's nice. It's nice that you're tuning in. I think a lot of the time it's just understanding what options are available to you. Because I would never, like, again, looking at GCSEs, I would think, right, you just got to be in secondary school and go through the same process that everyone else is. Do you feel like you have to defend your decision to home educate a lot?
I used to, but now I just don't care. I think I've got to the point where I'm just like, everyone's going to have their opinion about something. And sometimes it'll be, like a completely ignorant opinion, in which case I'm not opening a discussion with that person because I just can't be bothered. But sometimes people are like genuinely, like if someone's genuinely interested and they want to understand more about it, I am all ears and, you know, really like, you know, and actually if anyone wants to message me and ask questions about it, I'm very happy to do that. What I'm not willing to do is have like conversations with people that are just going to be like, oh, you're making the wrong choice. Like that sort of stuff.
No, I get that. But, I wanted to give you part of this conversation to have a bit of a forum to talk about, you know, why you chose this route. But I think that's a really lovely invitation. If there are people listening to this, and I'm talking to anyone that's listening to this now, that do want to explore it more and explore it further, or there's something about this conversation that we're having that makes you know, inspires you to want to learn more, then Emma's saying, then you can reach out and we'll give you links on how to do that.
I mean, there's also some really good resources online as well. Like there's actually a charity called Education Otherwise who help families to find the right education for their child, whether that is home education or an alternative like provision or what have you. So they're really good, and if you want to deregister and home educate your child, then it gives you all of the instructions on how to do that as well on that website. So
that's really helpful. Thank you for that, Emma. Right, we're on the final stretch now. I'm going to ask a couple more questions and then we're going into the closing tradition. I've also introduced...
I'm so excited for
if you've heard Kai's episode, you'll know there's a game that I've introduced on this season too.
Yes.
But I'm going to put you on the spot. What advice, if there's one piece of advice you could give to a parent that's thinking about home educating, that's on the fence, that's maybe wondering if it's the right decision for them, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
What's holding you back? Like, I think I suppose I'd come back to it and say, you know, what's the thing that's holding you back? And because usually it's a fear, isn't it? Like inside us, that's kind of like, you know, what might people say, or what if I fail my child, or what if it's the wrong choice, or what have you. But I think, the other thing is that no choice that you make ever has to be forever. Like you can always change your mind. And you can try it. And if you don't like it, or your child doesn't like it, or it doesn't work for whatever reason, schools are always available. So you can always go back to that. So it's scary kind of to take the leap sometimes. And
that leads me to my next question as well, which I think might be the same sort of answer. But what advice would you give someone that's on the fence about starting their own venture? Because you've made some big life decisions, so
around maternity leave. So like obviously going through a midlife crisis.
It's a massive period of change, isn't it?
Again, like just go for it. Like I think you'll always regret the things you never do, won't you? Like so I think if you've got something that you really want to do, and you think, like, I mean, I'm the biggest one for holding myself back as well. I just like, you know, and it is that fear of like, you know, what if it's the wrong choice and stuff, but you have to just feel that fear anyway and just go for it. So
it's embracing that, isn't it? You can't just push it, you can't just sweep it under the rug, you can't pretend it isn't there. Sometimes identify it, acknowledge it, stare it in their face and think, I'm gonna have a go at this.
Just do it. Just go for it.
It's like so many people, I think, share that advice, and it sounds so glib. But I think it is true. Like, I've not been able to say it in any different way. Like, if you get to a point where you've got something formed in your head, like, what have you got to lose? What's the worst that can happen? And would you rather regret not doing it than regret giving it a shot? What that you don't want to be asking in a few years' time, what if? What if? Like, I just
think about old lady Emma, like when I'm in my 80s.
Project forward.
I'm like, thinking about her, and I'm like, what would she be saying to me right now?
That's a really good way to think of it. And I think a lot of people will listen to that advice and think, oh, it's all right for you because you've done it. But having that lived experience of, if anyone thinks you don't make a decision to go and work for yourself and you aren't shit scared about it at some point, then I mean, I know from experience that I was terrified about starting on my own. But I don't regret it for a second. And just ask yourself, what if? So it is really inspiring what you've done, Emma, and I thank you for sharing it. And I know, you know, I think with some of the decisions you've made that aren't like your stereotypical, the normal route to go down, I'm using air quotes for anyone listening to this, Yeah, and I think the way you handle it all and the way you've built this community that Sophie was fortunate enough to be part of for a period of time, and has got such fond memories, and the anecdote she comes back with, she still sees people that came to that class.
Oh, that's so nice.
And she gets so like the smile on her face and the kids' recognition, the mums.
Yeah.
I think probably more so than the kids recognise her and have those conversations. It's so lovely what you're doing.
Nice.
So yeah, that's really cool. Okay, the last two things. So we've introduced a this or that game for this season. So 10 questions, 2 options.
I'm nervous.
Do you know what? I do try and make these. I said on Kai's one, I try and make these relevant to what you do for a living. And I've tried. All I can say is I tried.
After listening to Kai's one, I was like, I wonder what he's going to say for mine.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Okay, we'll give it a go. 10 questions. We can always cut that out. Okay, this or that. Question number 1, Montessori blocks or Lego bricks?
Lego.
Question number 2, building with wooden toys or making a fort with cushions?
Cushions.
Question number 3, play session at Monty's or homeschooling morning? Or home educating morning, I should say now.
Oh, no, that's mean. How can I possibly choose?
It's a play session at Monty. It's a play session at Monty's.
It's like choosing between my children.
Yeah, it's Monty's. It's Monty's. I'm going to say it for Emma.
Right.
Question number 4, in the business or on the business?
In the business.
Okay. Question number 5, routine or go with the flow?
Oh, go with the flow.
Question number 6, teaching toddlers or taming parents?
Teaching toddlers.
Question number 7, classic fairy tales or silly made-up stories?
Silly made-up stories.
Question number 8, glitter, yes or no?
No, definitely no. I hate glitter.
Good. Question number 9, finger paints or colouring books?
Oh, colouring books.
Okay. Question number 10, final one, do you miss parents' evenings, yes or no?
Definitely not. Absolutely not.
Thank you for getting involved with that. I thought they were pretty relevant. I do try.
Do
try.
I liked it.
Right. We're on to the final.
I'm excited for your mum's question. I can't wait.
We're on to the final one. Okay, so where's mum's voice note? Let's have a go. I will always apologise. You know my mum better than a lot of guests that come in, so I will always apologise in advance for whatever mum has chosen to say. Let's see if this works.
Hi, Emma. What advice would you give to parents who are struggling to get their kids to do homework without bribery? Thank you.
Okay, so it's kind of like a classic question I think a lot of parents may have. How do you get your kids to do homework?
My question would be, why do we have homework anyway? There's actually evidence that proves that homework makes no difference on your child's academic outcomes.
I love that response. In your face, mum.
Sorry, Lisa. No, it's just that, like, I just think they've worked all day at school.
Yeah.
Why do they need to come home and do more? Like, just let them chill and play. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
I share that opinion.
Yeah.
Like what we're talking about, I'm not going to age you, mum, but obviously we're a different generation. But I do think this generation of parents probably have a slightly different take on things like homework. I know I do. And I'm very much I think before you have kids, it's easy to think, homework's just a rite of passage because that's what we had to do. And then you see their little brains and the downtime they need.
Yeah.
I push back a lot against some of the exercises that get sent home with Finley. Yeah. Like we do the occasional bit of like spellings and because they get tested and assessed on that as well.
Yeah.
And he actually what I will say is he enjoys it. And that makes a big difference. But if there was ever a time where I said, right, Finn, we've got to do this, and he pushed back and said, I don't want to do it. No way am I making that kid do it. He works his arse off at school. Yeah. The little heads are just filled with information all day.
The short answer is just bin it off.
Just bin it off. I love that. There you go, mum. Thank you. Did you think it might be a question about school or something?
I didn't know. I had no.
Which way it's going to go?
I was just, don't know.
Thank you so much, Emma.
Thank you.
Like I said, it's really inspiring what you've done. I think if anyone does have any questions for you, then an offer to get in touch or to check out the website. How do people learn more about Monty's?
Through the website. So there's a little synopsis on there of what we offer and stuff. And if you want to come along to a class, feel free. We're on Tuesdays in Lee, so it's good fun.
Get involved with it. We'll put the links to the website and your socials on the episode description anyway. Thank you so much.
I've got something for you. I forgot to...
Oh, what is it?
Well, you're going to laugh. I actually...
Oh my
It's a terrible photo of us.
So good.
On John McEnroe night.
Oh my goodness.
I was actually looking for a photo of me and you and two other girls when we were 4 and we stood in the playground at Grove.
Oh wow.
I was looking for that. I couldn't find it anywhere and I was like, oh, that one will have to do.
Do you know, this is it. Right, so Emma's just handed me a photo. Is this me and you?
Yes, it's me and you.
Oh my goodness. How old are we here?
I think about 20, 19.
Really?
20. Yeah.
Okay. So Emma's handed me a photo of us like 19 years ago. About 18, 19 years ago. And I'm pulling a face. I'll share this on the on one of the socials when we publish this episode. I'm pulling a face that I think I must have pulled a lot.
Yeah, I think you did.
Age.
Yeah,
because I've got this face in a lot of photos. I do not remember. I don't remember your hair being like that.
Do you not? No. I used to do like hair shows. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember that. I did a hair. That was why it was bleach blonde, because I'd done a hair show.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. A lot of the memories I have of us is dancing next to each other in the brush and your curls flicking me in the eye. Sorry. I remember that. I mean, you don't have to apologise for it, but I remember that vividly. But thank you so much. Wow, look at that. I'm going to take a picture and share that.
You can keep that.
Can I really?
Yeah, I don't want it.
Why? I mean, why would you? Okay, thank you for springing that on me as well. That's really lovely. Emma, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank
Cheers.
you very much.
Thanks for listening to Jobsworth. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to give us a follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, if you could take 2 seconds to rate the show, that would be awesome. You can follow Jobsworth on Instagram, where you'll get teasers for upcoming episodes, some behind-the-scenes videos, and the occasional bit of career inspiration. And if you'd like to learn more about my day job, then feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.